Facebook, any announcements? I just make a welcome announcement to our new student representative to the board. John, welcome.
Yeah, okay, so, hello, my name is Jung Min, and, first and foremost, I just want to say sorry, and I would like to apologize for being absent to the last, bond sport due to some personal issues that arose. I was unfortunately unable to make it here. Now, I know I want to keep this brief since I know you guys will stay here for 3 hours, so I want to tell you a little bit about this. So first off, I love to socialize. And even though I'm not the best at starting conversations, I always try conversing with as many new faces as I can. So I can create stronger connections and build a sturdier foundation for myself. I also always try to take new perspectives to try gaining better insight and creating more informed decisions so I can do the betterment of our district. And finally, I always try making the best decisions, whether it be taking on the personal endeavor of making more informed and creative decisions so we can have the betterment of our district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Welcome.
Right, our first order of business tonight is to elect a board chair and vice chair. Do we have any nominees for board chair?
I nominate you. A second.
I accept. Anybody else? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. All right, vice chair. Any, we nominate?
I would like to nominate Mark.
All accept. Second accepts. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, passes unanimously. All right. School board calendar for the 2024-2025. So in there, it was in your packet. We made a couple of adjustments from last year's board agenda or calendar, sorry. And it was just moving the superintendent's evaluation reporting. A couple months were off there. And then was there, I can't remember, was there one other?
Yes, since I have talked with each of you individually, we are shifting away from the comprehensive improvement plan to school scorecards. So you'll see alternating months. Sometimes it'll be a school scorecard, other times a district scorecard. So that's new this year. And I also want to say one quick amendment, and under May, the second bullet or square is Q3 district scorecard report, and that should be struck through. It actually is in July, that third reporting is for the district.
Great.
So in the beginning, just 25, 26, should that be 24, 25?
No, because I already gave.
Year,
Oh, yes.
this next July will be 25.
Yeah,
We're
20.
we're in 24, this is July 24, next July will be 25. Right?
Now you have me wondering.
So.
Next July.
About adopting the budget. Yeah. It should be adopted for the
The school scorecard. report.
Yeah, district scorecard report 3,
Beginning.
July. We can say beginning 2025 and not put 26 in there. How's that?
Thank you for
I hope
catching that. And as Teresa was saying, under June, we're gonna adopt next year's budget. So we put 25, 26 budget. That's quite good. And the transfer 24, 25 funds.
Yeah, those little,
Little,
Little things.
we put those things in there just to make sure that we're
We caught. Good test.
Good catch. Right. Then moving on to the organizational and procedural resolution. Couple of things are updated. Obviously, we have a new accounts payable clerk and administrative assistant on there. Yes, Simpson. Towards the end of the first page. Same as. Any questions? And then our school board operating protocol was updated back in 2021. When you looked through that, was there anything that stood out that you think we need to update? I really like it.
I think it really
did.
still stands, and I can't believe it's been 3 years. I know.
Is that date right?
I like them.
Yes.
Moving right along, the equity lens as well is the next page. Nothing has changed there from last year's document. Everybody in agreement? Okay. All right, moving on to our agenda for tonight. Accept a motion to approve the agenda.
Move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Yeah, I'll second. Moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor to accept the July agenda as is? Aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. All right, consent items. Lots of hiring, which is good this time of year. That's a good sign. As well as in there for the contract staff, Superintendent Stuckey said the information about that, the new contract that was agreed upon between the licensed employees and the district. How somebody could be moved to contract to permanent as opposed to temporary in that, yeah, probationary.
We had, there was 2 staff members, right? Two staff members over this next year.
So I would accept a motion to accept the consent items unless anything is to pull.
I'll move to approve the consent items as presented.
We have a move, should I have a second? Moved and seconded. Any discussion or anything? Okay, all right, all in favor? Passes unanimously. All right, reports, licensed and classified reports, nobody's here, so we're moving on to our budget report. Hello.
So I just want to say that these are preliminary. They shouldn't change a whole lot, but they are. For some reason when I pose or say share, it doesn't give me those. Okay, so here's the little lunch fund one. Okay, so you'll notice that at the very bottom of this report that we will end the year negative. I thought that I was gonna have enough by what we projected of the 89,000 to transfer, and it obviously wasn't enough. What I didn't take into account was the extra food that we purchased for summer school ahead of time. And so anyhow, so it's not, I mean, it is what it is, but I was really excited because I thought we were gonna be about it, we weren't. But other than that, it was a pretty normal month. You can just see the income for food expenses in that line item, and then the extra amount that we transferred, which was the 89,000. So any questions at all on this one? Okay, so then this is the preliminary for the general fund. Nothing unexpected in terms of revenue. The only thing that didn't happen, and I made a note at the bottom, that we have about a little over 254,000 in ESSER funds that have been approved but not received yet. And so you'll see, like right now, where it shows our ending fund balance is 1.9. With that extra money, we will hit my goal of trying to keep it over $2 million for a month-end fund balance. Because basically we had to pay those expenses, and the ESSER funds take a while for them to review them, approve them, and get them to us. So, but I couldn't do it earlier because they were expenses that happen at the end of the year. So just how it works out.
That will all be credited to this, to last.
I mean, it's credited to this year, this new fiscal year, but in my mind, we still ended the year where I wanted it to.
So we'd be looking at 2.1.
Yeah,
That's
probably somewhere in there. I still have to do some, year-end transfers, make sure everything is where they're supposed to be, but yeah, it should be over there. So that's exciting.
That's great.
And then expenses were pretty normal, and this is also with $100,000 transfer to the curriculum fund. We just kind of boosted it up a little bit because we had the ability to do that. So we were originally gonna, I think, do 200. And then because we ended up using ESSER for purchasing the curriculum, we have some left over, and so I decided to put it in the curriculum fund so that we can continue to build that fund up. So, any questions at all on this?
because we're gonna be looking towards another adoption next year.
We're doing another adoption, and so we do have it budgeted to do a transfer for that. But obviously this year was a little more expensive than what we initially thought, and it would be nice to have it built up, but that was something that we stopped doing it for a few years when we were dealing with the aftermath of enrollment changes. And so it'd be nice to keep that momentum going, so it's not these big transfers every few years, it's a smaller transfer, every year. Yeah, would be really cool. So anyhow, any questions on this? Okay.
Right, thank you, Christine. Superintendent report.
Right. So this evening's report is focused specifically on the annual school district equity report. It's the sole topic for tonight. And this image is something that we continue to embrace in the Mount Angel School District, just to remind everyone that equality does not mean equity. They are very different concepts, and that the visual demonstrates that. So that's where our work, that's the root of our work. And when we make our decisions, that's one of the ways we make our decisions, just as the school board has the equity lens to be looking at navigating through things and making decisions. So some of this is review. As you know, in June 2022, the school board approved new language and policy, JBE, educational equity, so that the superintendent would be required to provide progress on an action plan for equity for the school district. And there are many ways that we do that, but the largest way to do that is through our school district strategic plan, which is over here on the wall. That was approved by the school board in August of 2022. And rather than saying that inclusive practices are separate and are a checklist of things that we do, we embed them in our work on a daily basis. It's interwoven into the 4 priority areas and all 15 of the collective commitments under academic excellence as a priority, thriving citizens as a priority, thriving students, engaging family and community partnerships, and safe and welcoming schools departments. This past year, schools had comprehensive improvement plans, and through an equity lens, There was progress monitoring of achievement and climate goals, both to raise the bar for all students, but also to close the racial gap for academic achievement and school climate. Some of the ways that that was done or approached: school climate and student well-being data were collected and monitored. Quarterly progress reports to the superintendent and the board were given on comprehensive improvement plans. Historical academic data was shared with administrators and staff, as it is every fall. And monthly district level data analysis team, the administrative team looks at data and focuses on what we could be doing differently to see different results. I guess I should go back on the questions thus far.
Okay, I want to add, Joan, you're aware you can ask questions as we move through as well.
Anytime.
Just
That was open.
just FYI, if you have questions about anything.
All right, that's one. Thank you.
Recruitment of bilingual and bicultural staff is something we are always working on, striving for, and we continue to find success in. Expanded representation of student demographics in the hiring of teachers and educators. Our strategic plan and last year, the introduction of the district scorecard. Again, while inclusive practices are interwoven in all aspects of the strategic plan, there are also specific measurable actions that address equity, diversity, and inclusion. These have been some of them from last year. School welcome walkthrough audits, which Director Gordon gave you some information about earlier this past year. Student belonging survey and student experience survey were both given to all students grades 3 through 12. The parent experience survey, offering events that draw families into our schools, promoting and celebrating cultures and backgrounds, monitoring attendance, and more importantly, removing failures when they're applicable, and monitoring the progression of language proficiency for our English learners. So those were all things that specifically we addressed and monitored last year. Any questions? The EDI, or the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, was established in September of 2022. We have representation on that committee from a parent, student, and outside facilitator and administrator and teachers. The main goal this whole year was to come up with a meaningful, locally based equity framework tool that was relevant to who we are in the Mount Angel School District. So we weren't really looking at trying to find a framework that was nationwide or that Salem Kaiser uses. We want to focus on what we need here in the Mount Angel School District. And I'll be sharing more about the framework tool tonight. The framework is a guide for individuals, for schools, for the school district, and maybe the board at some point to reflect upon decision-making practices. And we are looking at expanding the committee in the fall, adding one more parent who can provide voice for students with disabilities, adding 2 more students who can add voice to their experiences in our schools. So although I would say that the work of the EDI committee focused on one thing this year, it was a very long, thorough process that involved a lot of, was constantly evolving, put it that way.
And it's foundational to all future work.
Absolutely.
And Rachel, the student currently and the future students, are they all gonna be from the high school, or are you adding?
At this point, it would be high school.
That's what I was.
And Reed Kaufman was our student on our EDI committee, so we might be looking for 3 students now rather than 2. But that student voice is pivotal to the work that the EDI committee
analyze and look at.
Does Director Gordon help with getting the student? Like, how do you go about getting the students to be a part of the committee?
Thank you for asking that. So it started very grassroots and we just looked for a couple of students that were part of the teen advisory board. But as we move forward, part of the law in Oregon now is that every school district will be required to have an EDI committee by 2025, and there needs to be an application process. So we're gonna be early starters with that and do that this fall instead of waiting until 2025. It's great. Any other questions on that? Okay. I always go back to our district mission and vision and how they relate to equity. Because when I look at the mission, we're ensuring pathways of growth for all students, but also the important piece to that is that responsive adult actions are taking place. So what we see, what we observe, we are responding to immediately. And our vision, to be a trustworthy district that values academic access, again, that word responsive is in there, prioritizes responsive supports, also individual supports, nurtures resilient and independent thinkers who grow to. The rest of my report is looking more closely at the equity framework that the EPI committee came up with, and you have a copy in front of you of the pretty, like 99% finished product. There might be a little bit of fixing fonts and things, but in terms of the content of it, the EPI committee feels very confident about what they put together. I have shared previously with the board when we were looking at the whole concept of an equity framework, different ways that they could look. One of them was to use it as a scoring tool, like a rubric. If there's a specific action, are we proficient? Are we not proficient? That was one possibility that we looked at that. Another, a set stated values and essential questions, and that's what the school board has for the equity lens. But we were really going for a set of priorities that can get captured on a single page. That's what we went for. So that's why you have a single page in front of you. And the reason for that single page is we really want individual staff and departments and the organization to refer to and apply that framework during the planning, decision-making, informing, debriefing, and have it be a grab and go that's easily accessible and not just buried somewhere. Wanted it to be realistic and include examples, which you'll see on the one-page handout. Hands-on, again, easily accessible, user-friendly. And the most important part about this is to go slow, to go fast, which is why it took us a whole year to come up with this framework. There were 5 priorities that we identified, and we looked at about 30 different priorities, looked at equity frameworks from around the nation. What did they prioritize? And what from those could we glean and say, well, this is a strong priority for us, or this is not. And we walked away with 5 essential questions or priorities that we felt were meaningful to our work here in Mount Angel. One is, how are we being responsive to student and family demographics? Are we being responsive to student and family demographics? Who will benefit from our decisions and actions? Whose perspective is not included? How are we responding to incidents and evaluating our actions? And then finally, how are we allocating our resources? Are we congruent in all those areas to make sure that we're continually focused on equity?
Rachel, before you move to the next slide, I just want to comment that the fourth bullet there, how are we responding to incidents and evaluating our actions? I love that you didn't put the question mark after, how are we responding to incidents? I just think that
That was
really important.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you saying that as
It's a
someone
big
who
deal.
sits on the committee, because that was very, very important to the committee, that we can't, when you know better, do better. And so you have to evaluate your actions in order to continue to.
Yeah, pausing and debriefing. There's always.
Thank you. So here we are, in the center, equitable outcomes for all students is what we want, that is the center of our equity framework. We're looking at demographics again. Decisions and actions. Inclusivity. Response. And resources. And from there, we broke it down, and I'm gonna do that tonight. Looking at the demographics, how are we responsive? Are we really in tune with that? We're about 49% Latino, 49% Caucasian, and then a couple of percentage points of mixed ethnicity. These are some examples. It's not a checklist. We don't want staff to be saying, well, I have to do that. Here's the thing, if you spend any time thinking about, exploring, reading about, talking about equity, diversity, and inclusion, there's no arrival point. There is never an arrival point. It is a journey that continues to evolve, so we didn't want this to be a checklist. It's just some ideas for people to think about. My assignments take into consideration the lived experiences and cultural observances of my students. Something that staff could think about. My homework and grading practices are inclusive of my students' resources, time, internet, parent support, supplies, outside of school. I learn about my students' home lives and family culture through conversations. Just a couple of examples of how we can make sure that we're being responsive to our student demographics. Any questions or comments on this particular element within the framework? So when we make our decisions and we have our actions, who's benefiting from them? Are a certain specific group of people, students, families benefiting? Are we all benefiting in some way, and how? Some possible examples. I have considered who will be most adversely impacted by my decision. We plan activities within lessons, thinking about which students will benefit. Our decisions will not exclude any student from an opportunity. Again, it's not a checklist, it's something to think about. We ensure my classes are accessible to all students seeking equitable enrollment. Questions or something? Okay. Whose perspective is not included? For me, this one is really important because a question I ask myself frequently is who's not at the table? And this is just another way of asking that question, who's not at the table? We provide alternative assignments for students with diverse learning styles and lived experiences. We encourage representation of students and community members in decision-making. We intentionally create space for historically underserved students to speak and share their perspectives in day-to-day instructional activities. We provide opportunities for feedback from my students and their parents, caregivers. We advocate for historically underserved students as events and activities are, which I think is one thing, this last one, that the board has always been very in tune with, and making sure that the decisions that get made in the district represent what our students are trying to tell us, whether it's athletics or clubs or activities. Questions or comments? Okay, how are we responding to incidents and evaluating our practices? We address incidents of bias quickly for both those who have been harmed and those who have caused. We are confident in knowing how to address an incident of bias in my classroom or in my department. Probably need to tweak that one a little bit. We send a consistent message to students, families, and community members about how we address incidents of bias. This is an area of growth for the school district and an area that the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee wants to look at next year, so that when things happen, they don't just stay sheltered necessarily and people don't learn from the experience. We want to make sure that we're learning and talking about how we can do business differently, better. And then finally, as a staff, we address incidents of bias, identifying lessons learned as well as successes. Very important, the successes. Questions or comments? How are we allocating our resources? And our resources are time and money and staffing and all of the things that are very limited, right? Especially in education. Am I using my planning time to focus specifically on differentiation for my most vulnerable students? We keep underserved students in mind when identifying and selecting materials and activities. Our school prioritizes programming based on the needs of historically underserved students. We consider student choice in my classroom. Do I provide flexible seating options, mindfulness activities? And we offer alternative assignments based on the student. Again, not a checklist, things to think about. Certainly great strategies, ideas, concepts to discuss between staff members. How do you feel about that? What do you think about that? How do you respond to that? Would you be interested in doing that? How can you help each other? So those are the different aspects that we're looking at in the framework. And there it is here in front of you. So I'm going to ask you, and this is a bit informal during a board meeting, but I want you to think about a time that you witnessed or experienced a new practice or program fail, a completely nosedive fail. And think to yourself what may have been the reason for the failure. I'll just give you some pause for just about 15 seconds to think of that. What caused the failure of a new practice or program? The reason that I asked that is because we spent a lot of time on this as an EDI committee, because we were feeling so great about this and can't wait to get it out there. And then we thought, okay, but we put it out there, not everyone is necessarily going to be comfortable with what they see here, or they'll have questions, or they'll embrace it fully. It'll be all over the map again because it is a journey. There's not a point. So we went back to go slow to go fast. Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. It's just so important to think first about carefully how you're going to hold things. So we decided to break it down, and instead of handing everybody one of these during district in-service week and saying, isn't this great? Here, we have this for you. Yeah, we're breaking it down. So the rollout, some ideas that we have so far, we're going to have an EDI leadership position at each of these schools, because it's just as important, if not more important, than the tech leadership position or the student leadership position. It's time for us to have EDI leadership as well. We think it would be important to introduce one element of the framework at a time. So arrive at the full framework by the end of the year, if we get to it by the end of year. So just focus on one piece. My message at Fancy Work Convocation, our district gathering, during the Wednesday of the in-service week. Every year I have some kind of a message and something to focus on. This year will be student belonging. Access and use of the framework elements at school department and district meetings. So if we're going to introduce just one of these, maybe it's this one. This is the only thing that we will have laminated and in front of staff, maybe for September, October. They won't even have to refer to the rest of this to start to feel comfortable breaking it down. Affirm what we're already doing. We already do so many of the things in here, so let's celebrate and keep acknowledging this is about what the conversations we are already having. Connect to what is familiar. The Kaleidoscope project, based on the feedback that we received, was a very successful project. That was a 5-part half-day series that I debriefed with you last year, I believe, in a work session. Connect back to that, what staff felt comfortable with in the Kaleidoscope project. Let's pull pieces of that in and have them connect with this document and this tool. And then finally, ask all staff members to set a goal to achieve that they feel comfortable. So those are some, but not all of the things we're going to do to break this down further and again, go slow and fast. Some important dates. August 28th is the district-wide gathering. I'll have a focus again during my time with all staff to talk about student belonging. We'll be recruiting potential committee members, parents, and students during September. We'll post our equity, diversity, and inclusion leadership positions at each of the 3 schools in September. We're going to take advantage of statewide in-service day this year. Every other year is here in the district, and this happens to be the year when we are here in the district. So we'll offer optional sessions for folks. And then we have half days, and even though there'll be building decision, some of that time is likely to be spent on as well, especially once we get those EDI leadership positions filled. There'll be a direct connection more back to the professional learning that happens on those half days. So that's been the majority of the work this year. It's time well spent. I believe so. The EDI committee feels really good about the work that got done this year. What questions can I answer?
I have a question or a comment. I think that this very slow rollout is going to be key because they're also learning a whole new curriculum. And so that might be, you drop this in front of them at the beginning of the year, a little overwhelming. Especially for the secondary, path. That church, so.
Very wise. Your thoughts?
Other than one more question, other than the EDI committee, what other committees are acting for district? Like I heard like the teenage,
The
like
team advisory
the teen
board?
advisory board, yeah, that's used.
So would you be interested in talking with me after the meeting and we can get you connected with that? That is only at the high school. So we'll get you the information that you want. Important committee. And I also would say that another possibility is student leadership at the high school. I would like to see more interwovenness and collaboration between the teen advisory board and student leadership class. It's always a possibility. And as a student representative, we'd like for you to be part of the leadership class if you're not already signed up for that. Anything else?
I think you've done a great job. I mean, it's definitely, makes you think about. Gives you a little extra.
Something to do while you're making your plans. I mean, it's just, I think some things I wish it would have been a little faster, but I understand the whole curriculum. It's so much of this is interwoven all together. There's pieces in the last piece that's like, that would be nice to have some of those in the beginning. That's, they do it a little bit. It's understandable.
You know which part to start with?
I don't yet. I'm going to look back at the 5 kaleidoscope presentations or modules and see which one feels like the strongest connection to what people already know and what they felt good about.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any board member reports? Seeing that there's nobody here or online or public forum, we can move right on.
Mr. Shepherd doesn't.
Yeah. He will be shortly. Moving on to action items, the 2024-2025 calendar updates. Superintendent, second, you want to talk about?
Yes,
What?
happy to do that. So this is part of the collective bargaining process. What was bargained was that 2 of the half days would abut right up against the first day back from spring break and the first day back from winter break. And so you will see a shift in those half days, so that they have that first day back after the spring break. So that was the change.
And the holiday, Rachel.
Yes, the holiday, which affects the employee calendars, is now paid holiday for January 1st.
That's it.
Do you give a reasoning why they want that first day back after those breaks?
They did not, and I'm curious to know what that was.
Because I'm wondering about public opinion and public perception on that, like you just had. I mean, I can foresee some of the community members being, well, you just had this long break and now you want another half day with no kids. That's the part I worry about.
Yeah, and that's a good heads up for me because I'll be the one to have to.
I would have thought they would have showed us the day before the break. so we-
Yes, yes,
Especially
Yeah.
Christmas, that falls on Friday.
yes.
That would be soon. Maybe they will next year.
Maybe speculate, maybe.
But they're still students, that's, I think, why it's not before the break, is they still, or not being students, they're still here. It's not a half day for them, it's just a half day with students. So maybe it wouldn't be as exciting to.
Yeah.
Have it the day before.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Corrected resolution adopting the budget.
So we need to.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Thank you.
And I'll do that. So I moved to approve the amended district calendar for the 2024-25 school year.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Just again, thanks and appreciation. I know this is always a complex, complicated journey. So, yeah, so well done.
Yes. All in favor of approving the amended district calendar? Alright, passes. unanimously. Now moving on to the corrected resolution adopted budget. You want to Christine, you want to speak on it about the two errors that were presented for
I'd like to say that I found these errors, well, I did find one. When I sent this to the county for them to certify, they found those two errors. So the first one in that first line, first part of it, there was a line that said in the 2024-25 in the sum of, it had a 30,069,409, which was actually 23-24 total budget. I just skipped that part and didn't adjust it. And then under the total adoption budget, the total was incorrect. Capital projects fund was missing missing function 2,000. This is a new fund and expense that we added for 24-25, and so it wasn't on my checklist to add that one. And so basically, this is a new line item that we created to start building a balance in a maintenance fund to help fund projects that won't be completed with a bond, but that we know are upcoming and going to be expensive. And so again, just trying to put some money away that's not necessarily in the maintenance budget. So that was $10,000 that we did for that year. And so that's why the actual total is 31,410,366. The actual budget that was presented to the budget committee and to you guys was the correct amount. These were basically just typos, mistakes on my part, so. But the approved budget, the physical budget was correct.
Doesn't change, right? Yeah. I really like the addition of that fund. Basically, a maintenance fund for stuff that happens that we don't know about yet, but that will be coming. So that was, I really like that. Yeah. Okay.
It was all Rachel, I can't take credit for that one.
Who's ever idea? All right, I would accept a motion to approve.
Move to approve the corrected resolution adopting budget 2024-2025.
We have moved, do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. The other discussion. All right, all in favor? Aye. Says you can see. All right, Mr. Shecker, thank you so
Alright.
much for waiting patiently.
Yeah,
Didn't mean to put you over in the corner.
Nobody puts Bill.
That's right.
I wonder. So the bond oversight committee meeting, this is as of June 20th, so a lot of stuff has happened since June 20th, but up until that point in time. St. Mary's window replacement at the library is underway. The siding, which is the EPIS on the outside of the building, is being investigated. And to inform the design of that scope and then cover additional unforeseen conditions. Replacement of that isn't gonna happen until next summer. So they're just trying to get a feel for how much damage there is under that site and what's the actual cost gonna be. The fire sprinkler system replacement is ongoing in St. Mary's. At Kennedy, the hazardous material abatement should be complete. I think it's done. They're working on the mechanical unit repair, improved access to the band choir room multi-zone unit, which is a heating, I don't know if it's AC too or not.
I thought I was doing pretty good to understand what MZU was.
They're demoing the new restroom areas, plumbing fixtures, and kind of revamping those, the bathroom at the north end of the east hallway. It's gonna be like a one-person bathroom, but then the rest of it will be storage for custodians and whatnot. And that's gonna be awesome for them. And at MAMS, the boiler has been shut down and drained. Demo and abatement of the boiler room is underway. It's probably really close. I think they were pouring concrete and whatnot.
The boilers now.
And they're doing some roofing and stuff. So this is as of June 20th. So that's, at that meeting, the committee reviewed the RACI matrix and we did scenarios and discussed those amongst members. And we are planning a summer tour sometime. Talked about that Wednesday, right? Yeah, so that's what we have. Any questions?
Do we have any information on the seismic work on the MAMS unit?
Yes, a lot. And I have asked Megan Reck with OTAC to start adding seismic information into the bond newsletter for that very reason. It is happening so quickly. I don't know if you spent any time at all, but they're tearing that, it's torn
Back
apart.
together.
Yeah, they're putting things back together. And they're targeted to be done by August 15th. This stuff, so,
It's good. Gotta get it done.
yeah, Marty has to make sure that floor gets polished before the school year starts.
Yes. It's a lot of plywood.
What's that?
There's a lot of plywood on that board.
Yes, there is.
Oh, it's entirely covered in like one quarter.
Yeah,
They did a good job protecting.
Good.
It's a lot of plywood.
that's good. And we want to protect those wood floors. Any questions or any additional items you want to know about the next time for next month?
Who puts those signs up about the bond work that's happening at each school?
It's nice, isn't it? OTAP did that. We asked them to do
I think that was a requirement, I guess we.
The one at St. Mary's sits a little back in
I
the
was there,
trees,
the
it's
guys
harder,
were looking
okay,
where to put it, and they're like all the trees in the front.
Yeah.
That was kind of like the limiting factor of where they were looking at putting it, they're like. The one gentleman stood across the street of the church, he was like looking and looking, said, I gotta go over there so you can see it. So. Yeah, I think they tried to do their best.
I didn't know if they push it forward a little bit, or would
Maybe
it
even put it
cause,
in the playground area.
maybe, yeah, I don't know,
Go around that corner, backside.
backside, I guess why you put it in front, but. Yeah, like pushing it forward, I think would even help, because it sits back along with not the trees on the front. Kind of,
If you put it in the playground area, though, it's still gonna be there when they have school, so it might be.
But they don't use that portion for the playground, only for offense, which
on the other, not on the backside of school, but on the other side of the
right
fence.
across from the church.
Oh, yeah.
They went to the west.
Gotcha.
Or would those trees block it, no, that line is,
It's all the trees are blocked.
Nice sight.
but it's good so that the public knows what's going on.
Yeah, I like
I like that they were put up there.
Yeah,
Nice touch.
all right. Thank you, Mr. Shepherd,
You're welcome.
for the update.
I get it. He deserves it.
All right, no other items, meeting is adjourned.